Very quick introduction for those that don't know me. My name is Nic. I am a life and wellness coach. I design corporate wellbeing programs. I am a speaker and educator on all things wellness, and I specialize in confidence, dealing with stress and anxiety, and behavior change. I also am studying for a master's in psychology, neuroscience, and mental health, which is just really a really great combination so we can pull all of this stuff together.
Interesting.
So I wanted to quickly just mention, I've been muted. I think I'm good now. So I wanted to mention that, of course, the whole point of this talk today is to celebrate International Women's Day. So for anyone who doesn't know, that is coming up on the 8th of March. This year, it's about accelerate action. So this is talking about gender equality, the differences that still exist. And there's a study that was just recently published in 2024 that says that women held only 36.6% of leadership positions in the FTSE 100. So obviously there's progress happening, but it's a little bit too slow. I would encourage everyone to get involved. I've put the website here if you want to have a look and get a little bit more involved in that. It's a really interesting topic. Also, when I was looking at this yesterday, The Guardian has published a new article on this just on the 3rd of March, basically saying that the UK is falling a little bit behind and there's much, much more work to be done. So if that's something that interests you, feel free to jump into the website and see how you can get involved. So our session today, what we're going to talk about primarily in this part one is the truth about confidence. So you will all have your own perceptions, of course, on what confidence is. I want to try and give you a fresh perspective on what confidence is. I also want to help you identify if a lack of confidence is holding you back in some way, personally, professionally, whether that is business related or personal, it can all tie in together. So again, please take from it what you need and focus on what's important for you, because it's going to be different for all of you. So a question to get us started, and I would invite you just to put your number in the chat. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel in yourself? This could be your business, it could be your work, it could be an idea right now. How confident do you feel in what comes up for you when I ask that question? So it could be yourself, maybe a new idea, a venture. 6, 7s, 5s, 3, 4. Oh, lots of different numbers. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because it shows you that there's so much variety. And it depends. Someone had put in there maybe one number personally, but in a work capacity, that might be very different. So again, that may be just something to acknowledge for yourself right now. If you were just talking about yourself personally, what would your number be? And you could maybe scribble this down. If you're thinking about your business or your work or idea, what is that number? And the whole point of this is just to give you a starting point so that you know where you're at. There's lots of really high numbers here, which is great. Brilliant. Thank you for being so sharing with your numbers. That's really appreciated. So what is confidence? So according to the Cambridge Dictionary, this is the official definition: the quality of being certain of your abilities or of having trust in people, plans, or the future. So obviously it's so much more than that, and this is what I want to dive into next. So let's take it a little bit wider, broader, go a little bit deeper. So a fresh look at confidence, I want to take you through 6 points that I think are really, really important. The first one is self-trust. So the first point I think is this ability to trust yourself, your decisions, your skills, and your ability to navigate challenges in any circumstances. So this definition really emphasizes a self-reliance and an internal belief rather than seeking certainty from others. So I want to invite you again to maybe just investigate this question of, do you trust yourself and your own capability? And again, scribble this down, take some Take some notes if that feels good. I want to highlight here also that confidence isn't about never making mistakes. We have all made mistakes. You're going to make mistakes in the future. But if you trust yourself to make a mistake and be able to handle whatever comes next, it takes a little bit of that fear away. Second point, confidence is something that has been shaped through your life. Now, this is really, really important because I want to highlight that you have a natural level of confidence that you need to uncover. So different speakers, different people obviously have different views on this. And I've heard a lot of people say that confidence is a skill that you need to work on. And whilst that's true to some extent, I also believe that confidence is something that you naturally have. It's not necessarily something that you need to find or install within yourself. It's something that you already have that maybe you have forgotten. So think about yourself and, where you've got to in life so far. Your experience has been shaped by all your interactions, all of your influences, the people that you grew up with. Society has had an impact, and the expectations that you've had of yourself and that others have had for you as well throughout your life. And this is why people, say that it's a skill that you need to build. And in a way, of course it is, but it's also a returning to the you that was already in there before all that life stuff happened. So for example, you all will have seen little toddlers as they're learning to walk, and they hang on to the chair, they fall down, they get back up. There's a natural rebound that we all have to get back up, to try again. And in the innocence of thinking about a toddler who's learning to walk, it's a really lovely concept that maybe you aren't lacking it at all. Maybe you've just forgotten who you naturally are. So think about that as, sometimes I like to think about it like, if you imagine a light bulb is turned on and you're putting lots of little tea cloths or towels or types of fabric over the top of this light bulb, it will eventually get duller and duller and duller. So try to think about confidence as a way to unravel these layers that you've put on top of your natural confidence. It's already in there. It's just that maybe you have to practice uncovering a little bit it, and also letting go of the stories and beliefs that you have about yourself, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. Third point is taking action. So confidence is not the absence of doubt. Doubt is really helpful, can be really, really constructive, but there's a willingness to act despite the presence of doubt. So it's about showing up even when you feel uncertain, unsure of the outcome, not confident at all. This is about inspiring yourself. We're not going to go into any neuroscience or the way that the brain works today, but something I want to tell you about is there's a certain part of your brain which is activated when you take action before you want to. So that space where you're like, well, I really want to maybe go to that networking event, but I don't feel ready. What if I'm judged? Who do I think I am to turn up to an event like that? There's a part of your brain that will light up when you do these things that you will be proud of afterwards. So think about it like you have to be able to inspire yourself before you feel ready. So a key takeaway of this point is to build the confidence through your action, not before. So you're building confidence through the actions when you actually feel uncomfortable in the first place. And please remember this idea of you want to inspire yourself before you feel like you're ready. That's really, really important. So our next point is about how you treat yourself. So confidence, especially natural, authentic confidence, comes from how you treat yourself, how you manage your thoughts, your self-talk, the way you show up for yourself, your dreams, and your ambitions. So I want to highlight here that the most important thing about yourself is what you think about yourself. This shapes every single thing around you. It determines your self-worth. It determines what you do. It also determines what you do not do. And it determines what you believe you're capable of. So a key takeaway from this is, if you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself. You have to remember that your inner voice and the way that you speak to yourself shapes your confidence on a daily basis. So I want you to just ask yourself, how am I speaking to myself? Are you kind of berating yourself for not being further on? Do you want to try and improve your narrative, that internal chatter, a little bit? Our next point is confidence as consistency. So confidence is knowing you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. And I really love this statement. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. It's consistently showing up, learning, and adapting as you go along. And this point is really focused on not allowing yourself to fold when things get tough. You may not believe it quite yet, but you have committed to showing up for yourself. Therefore, you do it. You make this contract with yourself. You make this agreement that you believe in yourself. You're going to try to move forward in some way that makes sense for you. And you keep that commitment to yourself. Now, there's evidence to show that the more promises you keep to yourself, the more confident you become, because internally you start to believe that you are more capable than you think you are. So this might be a good time to think about, if you were going to make an agreement with yourself, what would that look like? That might be to show up maybe for a new event that you've been looking at or considering, but you haven't done it yet, and just making that commitment. And writing it down is really powerful as well. You know, you have to think about, I commit that I'm going to go to this event next week, whatever that is. I commit to myself. Making agreements with yourself can be really, really powerful. And the last point on here is the idea of challenging yourself. So confidence is challenging the ideas that you may have about yourself, the stories, the repetitive narrative that plays in all of our minds. I want you to be able to see that first. You have to be able to see what's going on in your mind about yourself before you can do something about it. So this is really lighting up your self-awareness. And I would challenge you here. I want to give you just a wee bit of time to think about, what do you believe about yourself? If we were in a one-to-one situation right now and I asked you to tell me, what do you believe about yourself? What would you say? And maybe this is something great for those of you that are taking notes, writing stuff down. Please see if you can write a little bullet point or two on this. A lovely thing to ask yourself here, or to challenge yourself to do, is to write down maybe an old or outdated belief about yourself and flip it into something more empowering. So it could be, I've never been great at maths, for example, so I'm going to find accounting really challenging if I start my own business. And then you can flip that into something like, I'm learning how to do this. It's not something I've been familiar with in the past, but I can learn this. And that's a choice. That's a choice to take something that you find a little bit of a struggle and empower yourself to think about that differently. Something I think it's really important to remember here is that if you can see it, you can change it. If you don't know it, you can change it. If you're not aware of it, you can change it. You have to be able to look at what you're telling yourself about yourself. And it's very easy to have critical thoughts take hold. You know, our negative bias in our brain is really powerful. So that negative bias will try to protect you, sometimes from growth, coming from a really positive intentioned place, but sometimes can hold you back. So try to just notice where the negativity pops in, where that critical voice pops in. try to see very clearly what you're telling yourself. What I want you to think about next is, what if the stories that you're telling yourself are not really true? Some of you will have maybe heard this before, but what if the narrative that you've been telling yourself isn't true? What if you think you haven't been great at maths or numbers and you're scared of the accounts and the tax side and all of that, which is very common? What if you're naturally quite good at that, but you've never had the chance to investigate it? I want you to think about rewriting your own script, your own story. And the key takeaway here, you can scribble this down. You hold more power than you think. You hold more power than you think. If you really believe that, what would you do? If you really believe that, what would you do? This is something, if you're taking some notes, that you can come back to and work on a little bit more in your own time. It's such a powerful tool, this idea of self-reflection. So again, I want to highlight for you that what you think of yourself is the most important thing in your life. So the question for you guys today is, what do you believe about yourself? Again, if we were one-to-one and you were able to answer me and write it down instead, what do you believe about yourself? So this is really important because scientists believe or estimate that approximately 95% of all of your behavior and actions is driven by the subconscious mind. 95%. So it sounds a little bit like, how can that possibly be true? Only 5% is conscious choice. So it's really important to understand that things that you believe about yourself are sometimes driving your actions and behavior without your conscious awareness. So a way to think about this is, if you know something logically and you're wondering why, well, I know this to be true, why am I not taking any action? It could be that your subconscious beliefs are driving your behavior, which means if you're having any kind of like internal conflict. So for example, I know this would be really good for me, but I'm not taking the action. And then you get really frustrated with yourself because, why am I not taking the action? I know it would be good. It makes logical sense. Usually there's some kind of internal belief behind that needs to be addressed. So try to remember that 95% of all of your actions is driven by your subconscious mind and your beliefs. And something I get asked quite often is, how do I change these subconscious beliefs? And really this is through reprogramming and behavior change and continual work, because it can't be done overnight. If you think about, again, if you were to draw out your timeline for everything that you've experienced up until this point, that is the sum of your subconscious mind. So everything that you've ever experienced, every teacher that you had, every movie you've ever watched, all the friends that you had, everybody has contributed to this like blueprint, if you like, of what's in your mind. So each one of you will have a completely different blueprint and a subconscious mind. So think about it like, I need to tap into that subconscious belief to really impact my behaviors and actions, all of which can build your confidence from the inside out. So next, I want to focus on, is a lack of confidence holding you back? So I want to get you really, really clear on this, because sometimes, like a few of you said in the comments earlier, if you feel confident on a personal life basis, but maybe not so much on a business or a new idea or a work perspective, there might be a little bit of like reconciliation that needs to happen here. So let's get really clear on if the lack of confidence is holding you back from moving forward. So the first thing is overthinking. We all can be prone to this from time to time, and that's normal. But do you overanalyze a lot? Do you try to consider all of the possible outcomes? There's something called analysis paralysis, which can prevent you from moving forward, where you're thinking about it so much. You're probably, wanting to do your diligence well, and at a certain point, it becomes detrimental. So when you're thinking about overthinking, which is a little bit ironic, confidence comes from action. So you can overthink it. You can come up with 100 different scenarios, but at the end of the day, your confidence will be built from taking the action, not endless analysis. Now, of course, analysis can be really, really helpful because it's preparation, but you have to know yourself the difference between getting well prepared and then it becoming detrimental. And it's a fine line, but I want you to ask yourself and be really honest with yourself. Do I sometimes overthink too much? So you can reframe it a little bit in your mind if that helps. You can ask, what if this goes wrong? And then you could ask, what if it goes right? What if it goes better than I could possibly imagine? Now, something else that is a big topic and it always comes up is procrastination. So the interesting thing about procrastination, there's a whole other talk on this, but just for now, it's the avoidance of a feeling. I want you to really remember that. It's the avoidance of a feeling, not a task or job, usually. So I want you to go a little bit deeper here and ask yourself, what am I trying to avoid by not doing X, Y, Z? Procrastination is often fear in disguise. So it's a fear of failure, fear of success sometimes, because how will that change my life and the people around me? It could be a fear of judgment. And confidence grows when you take sometimes messy action. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the perfect time, but action of any type will help you kind of break that procrastination cycle. But please remember that it's the avoidance of a feeling. You know that situation that we get when you do the thing that you've been putting off for weeks and then you think, oh, it actually wasn't that bad in the first place. You've just been avoiding that feeling of uncertainty, which again, as human beings, we don't like. We don't like uncertainty. We don't like not knowing what's coming up next. So procrastination in some ways is you're trying to control the outcome, which of course, logically that you can't. So to try and get over this hurdle sometimes of procrastination, ask yourself, what is the smallest step that I can take right now? And that might be one post on social media. That might be it. What's the smallest step that I can take right now? It could be contacting someone about your business idea. It could be talking to a friend about taking that next step into a growth phase. It could be just journaling or brain dumping your ideas. When you put it from your head onto paper, somehow it really comes to life. So I would always encourage you all to do that. Self-doubt is something that's also worth talking about in this context. So I want you to ask yourself, do you believe in yourself? Again, if it was just you and me, what would you say if I asked you, do you believe in yourself? Now, I know sometimes these answers can be complicated, but I want you to really challenge yourself to write this down. You might believe in yourself in certain aspects, not in others. How would you define that exactly? Now, this is very closely linked to what we talked about earlier, which is the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves and our lives, that internal narrative. It's linked very closely to your subconscious mind and what you believe about yourself and your capabilities. And remember that your subconscious is made up of all of the experiences that you've had in your life to date. So it's normal for self-doubt to creep in if you've had adverse experiences in the past. That might be at different places that you work, it might be with people and relationships. There could be a whole combination of things at play there. But I want you to really remember, when thinking about self-doubt, it's just a thought, it's not a fact. So your confidence is built by challenging these thoughts and proving again to yourself that you are capable through taking the action. So remember that again, you're trying to prove to yourself that you're capable through taking action, even when you don't feel ready. So I want you to kind of flip the script a little bit on this one. And when self-doubt says, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready, change that to, I'm learning how to do this. I'm learning how to do this. I'm not there yet. 3 little letters, massive potential, yet. I'm not there yet. I don't know how to do my accounts yet. I don't know how to take my business to the next level yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm learning how to do this. I'm working through a lack of confidence. All these kind of statements hold a different kind of power than, oh, I can't do this. I need to give up. I'm not ready. They're so much better than me. I've only been in business for 2 months. What do I know? All of these things that come up. So this is a really important one to come back to again in your own time and maybe explore this a little bit deeper. What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about your capabilities? What stories do you tell yourself about you? And also about, your timeline and your career and where you've came from to get to here. Because sometimes I'll encourage people, again, to draw out your timeline of your life in a career-based way. So, how did you get to where you are now? You have so many skills that you've probably forgotten about, or that you deem not necessary or not that important. Or maybe you think that everyone has these skills, but that's just not true. Think about it like everything that you have experienced, personally, of course, as well, and professionally, is kind of forming this lovely circle that is your own personal skills. And it's like a unique fingerprint again of everything that you can do will be very different to what someone else can do in that same space, because it's your voice, it's your experience. So please try to give a little bit of weight to that. Everything that you've came through, all of the personal challenges, yes, of course they impact your professional life, because you've already proven to yourself that you can get to here. You've already proven to yourself that you can get through some really hard stuff, because we've all had adversity, we've all had challenge. So how has that shaped you and what you think about yourself? Next, I want to mention imposter syndrome, because again, this comes up quite a lot. Do you believe you're qualified enough? I've put it in inverted commas because it doesn't really mean anything to be qualified enough. It's a very gray area. How can you be qualified enough? But do you believe you're qualified in your world, in whatever world that is that your business is in, or that you're in personally, or from a career work perspective? Do you have imposter syndrome creep in every now and then? And of course, we all have it from time to time. Women in particular struggle with this feeling. And I would encourage you to think about addressing this head on. It can be really, really powerful, because it doesn't mean that you're a fraud when this thought pops in. It means that you're continually growing and developing. Now think about some woman or person that you admire. They also experience self-doubt and imposter syndrome from time to time, but it's likely that they take action anyway. And it's probably the action that they take that inspires you. And coming back to our whole theme of today, which is, inspire yourself. Inspire yourself before you're ready. And also remember, you don't need to know everything. Be brave enough to say when you don't know something. There's no weakness in that. So if you go to an event and someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer, it's perfectly acceptable to say, I don't know that, but I'm more than happy to try and find out. Give me your details and I'll let you know, or I'll get back to you. Or you can just say, I don't know that. Do you know anyone else who's an expert in that field that I could get in touch with? There's no shame in not knowing everything. None of us know everything, but the difference is in being brave enough to say when you don't know. Next point is seeking validation. Do you seek validation from sometimes colleagues, might be friends or family? You might ask for feedback or direction on small details, not trusting your own judgment and your own expertise. Now, of course, seeking feedback from people is not a negative thing at all. It's when you're seeking validation because you don't trust your own judgment. Because in theory, you could seek feedback or ask people's advice. That's perfectly fine. They might give you all the advice and you still make your own decision, which is different anyway. But you will all know yourself. Do you seek validation on a healthy level, or do you feel like you rely on it too much? So confidence, authentic, true, valued confidence isn't built by getting external validation. It helps, of course, and that's okay. But true confidence is built by trusting yourself. So the more that you rely on other people for approval, the more of your own personal control and power that you give away. So something to keep you in the kind of healthy zone with this is ask yourself, am I making this decision for me or for approval from others? Am I making this decision for me or for approval from others? And the last one, which again could be a whole topic on its own, is fear of failure. So a strong sense of failing may dominate your actions and behaviors at times, and that might leave you to avoid taking risks that are necessary for your own growth and development, which ultimately is avoidance behavior. So if you're someone who has a sense of this idea of a fear of failure, know that it's perfectly normal. But failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. So if you fail at something, know that you've learned something really important. So, sometimes in the past I've done workshops or topics and the response has been either low or people aren't interested or whatever that might be. And I never see that as failure. I see that as, how can I communicate that message better? So how can I change this up a little bit? What have I learned from this experience? Everyone, again, that you admire has failed and learned and kept going anyway. And it goes back to that consistency that we talked about earlier. You have to be consistent, and that comes from just continuing to work on this idea that you can grow and develop your own confidence. Just when we're talking about this fear of failure, try to reframe this from what if I fail to what will I learn if I try? What will I learn if I try? And when you think about it that way, then there's really no such thing as failure. It's just learning in different modes. And that's a really lovely way to think about it. If failure doesn't exist, then all there is learning opportunities. So I wanted to highlight just quickly for you guys some examples of avoidance behaviors, which some of you might recognize in yourselves. First one is avoiding financial risk. So this can feel like a reluctance to invest to expand, to grow your business, and this kind of desire to stay in the comfort zone. Now, again, the comfort zone is a pro and a con. We're all designed to love the comfort zone. So it can feel a little bit scary when you're pushing out to that growth zone, but know that the growth zone is where the magic happens. If you're uncomfortable, you're growing. If you're feeling or learning, then you're growing. So get uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, oh, this doesn't feel like me. Great, try it. Oh, I don't feel like I'm ready. Great, try it. So just notice if you're keeping yourself in that comfort zone. Limited goal setting is another one that I see quite often. So ask yourself, are your goals too modest? Are they too small? Are you keeping yourself small? Do you avoid setting goals in the long term? And it's likely that you are underestimating your potential. And again, this comes down to personal preferences on what you want, because you might want a really beautiful, comfortable, small business that you don't want to grow and expand. And that's wonderful, of course, that's a great thing. But if you're holding yourself back unintentionally or subconsciously, then that's really important to be aware of that too. You might find that there's a reluctance to promote yourself, to talk about yourself, to tell people about what's going on. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable to promote your business or yourself for that matter. You may miss opportunities for growth. Now, this is more widespread in women, again, as the research would say, that we don't speak up for ourselves enough. We don't push ourselves and our achievements and our capabilities enough because we like the comfort zone. We sometimes, again, through society and all of the challenges that we have had to overcome as a gender, means that this is a little bit harder for us to promote ourselves, because, you know, I've certainly had examples of this in the past where you get told that you're too emotional or you're too passionate or, you know, you're too whatever for society or the industry or the work that you're in. But, you know, again, get comfortable being uncomfortable and don't be afraid to talk about what you've achieved. It's really important to be able to believe what you're actually telling other people. You know, you're telling yourself at the same time. Next one I wanted to highlight is isolation. So this can be an avoidance of networking or seeking out partnerships in the fear of getting rejected, or that you will be judged by more experienced people. But imagine we all kept ourselves isolated. How many amazing things would be going on that you would never know about? So again, please challenge yourself to get out there. Obviously, coming to something like this today is incredible because you're already doing it. You're putting yourself out there to see if you can, you know, help yourself get to that next level, which is amazing. And the last one I wanted to highlight is doubting your worth. So this is something that I see quite often. Do you charge what you are worth? Do you struggle with your pricing? Do you offer too many discounts? Do you give freebies to friends and family? And of course that has a place, but at some point, again, you will know the fine line when that is detrimental. Do you have a fear that higher prices will drive your customers away? Do you underprice and undervalue yourself? Again, this is common as women, so I really want to encourage you to think about what you are worth. And again, please remember your little, you know, your little beautiful bubble of all of those things, all of your skills and achievements and everything you've developed over the course of your life is different to everyone else's. We all have a different blueprint, a different strategy. And because you have your own one, no one else will ever be able to deliver it as you can. So if you really nurture and cultivate this idea that you truly are unique, then how would you price yourself? Would you communicate your worth properly with other people? Would that change it if you really believed it? Now, there's lots of work. I just want to mention quickly, there's lots and lots of work that we can do to influence the subconscious mind and what you believe about yourself. That's going to be part of part 2. So just while we're talking about this, we'll be talking about really some practical strategies that you can use to influence what you believe about yourself. So just remember that, and we'll come back to that in part 2. So a question for you: what would you do next if you fully believed in yourself and what you're capable of? And I want to really, again, kind of cultivate this idea that you're building your confidence so that you can put yourself out there in the way that you choose to. It's all about personal choice. But if you really truly believed in yourself and what you're capable of, what would you do next? It could be launch your Instagram page. It could be finally get that website started. It could be brainstorming business ideas. What would you do if you really believed it? Because we are all capable of incredible things, but most of the time you don't believe it, hence you don't take the action. So I really, really want to encourage you all to ask yourself every day, if I was really capable, what would I do next? Act like her in advance. Fool yourself in the interim if you have to. Tell yourself you're more capable than you think. And think about, the hard things that you've overcome. Remember, you are more capable than you think. So what would you do next? The Business Gateway team have so many exciting things on all of the time. So please remember to check out the website as well.